Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the live lower speeds class. We're going to get started with some common words. All right, happy Monday. And let's get started. Here we go. Ready? The, I, to, and, a, of, was, you, it, in, her, she, that, my, his, me, on, with, at, as, had, for, but, said, be, up, out, look, so, have, what, just, not, like, go, they, this, from, we, back, were, all, do, one, about, no, if, when, then, get, into, would, there, I'm, could, don't. All right. Now I've got some duos. Okay, these are two words. Here we go. White clouds, sharp blade, brown paint, steel drum, cold snap, farm land, clean clothes, long chain, green grass, large tract, steel cable, black belt, hard work, strong wind, small print, field stone. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do a basic brief review from theory. Okay, you're going to hear correspond, K-O-R, correspondence, K-O-R-N-S, Monday, M-O-N-D, Tuesday, T-U-S, Wednesday, W-E-N-S, and Thursday, T-H-U-R-S. Here we go. Here are your sentences. We correspond on Wednesdays. Who does your correspondence? I take music lessons on Tuesdays. Every Wednesday, I catch up on my correspondence. The daily news is hunting for a correspondent to work in Spain. Thanksgiving is on a Thursday in November. Class meets each Tuesday. I hate Mondays. Are you still playing golf on Thursday? Have you corresponded long? We are corresponding regularly. Have you corresponded with Chelsea? The report is due Monday. Tuesday was extremely warm. I received the correspondence on Wednesday. I enjoy corresponding with him. I have choir practice each Thursday night. Monday night is football night. They have corresponded for a long time on a regular basis. John is a correspondent and has to get his reviews in promptly. The meeting was scheduled for Wednesday night, but was postponed until Thursday. I have corresponded with a friend in Nebraska. All right, let's do some cities and numbers. Here we go. Kansas City, 125,690. Nashville, 86,414. Dallas, 505,208. San Antonio, 57,654. New Orleans, 308,136. Milwaukee, 146,940. Pittsburgh, 101,813. Jacksonville, 137,324. Indianapolis, 156,626. Cleveland, 251,347. San Jose, 340,574. All right. Moving into NT contraction words. Okay, I'll give you the words, and then I'll go right into the sentences, okay? Here we go. Don't, won't, can't, isn't, hadn't, weren't, couldn't, wasn't, aren't, doesn't, wouldn't, didn't, hasn't, haven't, shouldn't. And here are your sentences. Don't you know that he won't be able to leave on Monday until he finishes? He hadn't taken the first course and couldn't do the work in the advanced class. Isn't it true that the team hasn't won a game all season? I can't believe that Lynn hasn't turned in her spelling lesson yet. We weren't aware that we shouldn't use this entrance to the ballroom. Shouldn't you have known the books hadn't arrived before you agreed? Aren't you one of those who doesn't have a ticket for the play? The players wouldn't use a play they haven't used before in practice. Doesn't it seem as if there wasn't enough time to finish the job? Isn't it a shame that he didn't have the necessary funds to save his business? Wasn't he told that the latch on the door doesn't work easily Weren't you there when he said they couldn't go to the beach with us? Excuse me. All right. Let's do some names and addresses. I will spell the last name. Here we go. Ready? Lynette R. Based. B-A-S-T. Route 1, Box 348. Deer, Wisconsin, 51225. Ms. Lori S. Hetland, Hetland, 100 Wampanoag Drive, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, 02871. Mound Middle School, 3789 North Water Street, Deckeson, Illinois, 62526. Melissa M. Peterson, Pederson, Route 10, Box 85. Centuria, Wisconsin, 54824. Mr. Paul Z. Amato, AMATO, P.O. Box 628, Colonial Squad, Albany, New York, 12232. Mr. Mark G. Rudningen, RUDNINGEN, Route 15, Box 319B, Bernard, Minnesota. Ms. Cynthia J. Griffin, GRIFFIN, Route 24, Box 26, Fifield, Wisconsin, 54524. Ms. Stacy A. Duplin, DUPLIN, Route 40, Box 709, Brenald Bridge, Louisiana, 70587. Mr. Anthony N. Bach, BOCC, Waynesburg College, Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, 15370. All right. Let's go ahead and move into our literary and jury charge. We're going to start off with an email. It's about 2 paragraphs long. I'm going to read this once at 60, again at 80, and finally at 100. Okay, so the first time will be at 60. This is an email. Here we go. John wasn't aware that he hadn't received the information on time. The company wasn't checking on the mail properly and didn't know that it hadn't been sent out on time. Can't you do anything to hurry things up? John couldn't help it because he wasn't informed. The company shouldn't have been upset about it. John hasn't been remiss before. I can't help but feel he shouldn't be blamed. I haven't been to New Mexico and am looking forward to our vacation. I don't see why we can't leave for our trip today. I know Raymond didn't get the car repaired, and Sarah hasn't packed. But we don't have anything else we haven't done. I won't take the big bag because there wouldn't be room for it. The first leg of the trip won't take more than half a day, but I think that it will be noon before we can get started. I hope that nothing occurs that will make it even later before we have a chance to go. Did you remember to tell the Johnsons that we were going to be gone for 2 weeks? All right, so let's do that again at 80. Here we go. John wasn't aware that he hadn't received the information on time. The company wasn't checking on the mail properly and didn't know that it hadn't been sent out on time. Can't you do anything to hurry things up? John couldn't help it because he wasn't informed. The company shouldn't have been upset about it. John hasn't been remiss before. I can't help but feel he shouldn't be blamed. I haven't been to New Mexico and am looking forward to our vacation. I don't see why we can't leave for our trip today. I know Raymond didn't get the car repaired, and Sarah hasn't packed. But we don't have anything else we haven't done. I won't take the big bag because there wouldn't be room for it. The first leg of the trip won't take more than half a day, but I think that it will be noon before we have a chance to go. I hope that nothing occurs that will make it even later. Did you remember to tell the Johnsons that we were going to be gone for 2 weeks? Now, just information if you don't already phrase, did you remember is D-U-R. Okay. All right, let's do this one more time at 100. John wasn't aware that he hadn't received the information on time. The company wasn't checking on the mail properly and didn't know that it hadn't been sent out on time. Can't you do anything to hurry things up? John couldn't help it because he wasn't informed. The company shouldn't have been upset about it. John hasn't been remiss before. I can't help but feel he shouldn't be blamed. I haven't been to New Mexico and am looking forward to our vacation. I don't see why we can't leave for our trip today. I know Raymond didn't get the car repaired and Sarah hasn't packed, but we don't have anything else we haven't done. I won't take the big bag because there wouldn't be room for it. The first leg of the trip won't take more than half a day, but I think that it will be noon before we can get started. I hope that nothing occurs that will make it even later before we have a chance to go. Did you remember to tell the Johnsons that we were going to be gone for 2 weeks? All right. Let's do some jury charge. The subject here is common carrier. You're going to hear ladies and gentlemen of the jury, which is L long AJS, defendant, DEFT, employ, PLOI, transportation, you can write that as TRANGS, responsible, SPONL, burden of proof can either be written as BURP or initial B, final RP, leaving out the U. Preponderance of the evidence. I like to write that out, but I know there is a brief for it. I usually do P, initial P, final P for preponderance, and then I just come back for of the, and then come back for EFD for evidence. All right. But that's not to say that there isn't a brief for it. Let's go ahead. I'm going to start at 60 and work my way to 100. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, a common carrier is one who undertakes for hire to transport from place to place the goods or persons of those who choose to employ him. The defendant, in taking transportation, the machine here in question was a common carrier for hire. Generally, a common carrier of goods ensures the safe transportation of the goods committed to him for that purpose. and he is responsible for all damages to the same while in transit. There are, however, certain exceptions to this rule. One of these exceptions is if the loss or damage arose solely from the fault of the shipper himself. That is, if the goods or freight transported is improperly packed or improperly loaded by the shipper, and this fact is not apparent or known to the carrier, and the carrier is not at fault himself in causing the damage, then the carrier is not liable for the loss or damage resulting from such improper loading by the shipper. It cannot be said, however, that the carrier must have known that the machine was not, in fact, safely loaded. The shipper usually knows better than the carrier the manner in which the goods have been packed or loaded and the manner in which they should be packed or loaded. And even though the carrier may have knowledge of some defect in the packing or loading, still, if it is not apparent of the ordinary observation of the carrier that the goods cannot be safely carried in the condition in which they are presented, the carrier should not be held to take the chances of damage or injury from such proper packing or loading. The burden of proof rests upon the defendant to prove by the preponderance of the evidence that the loss or damage arose solely from the improper loading by the defendant. All right. Now I'm going to just read you, just for a few more minutes, some closing arguments that we've been working on. So I'll pick up from where we left off for just a few more minutes. I'll read this at 80. And also, Joanna Hodkins also told us that she never saw Carrie Dawn Scott there at all. So that's what Joanna Hodkins said about Gina Lee. She couldn't have been in the field. She couldn't have been with Chester Norwood. She couldn't have seen what she said she saw. We brought you Jesse Brown. Jesse Brown, because he was in room 116, and he said he heard the shot. And here's the key for Jesse Brown. Who was in the room with you? Jesse Brown. He said Chester Norwood. When the shot occurred, when you heard the shot, are you sure that Chester Norwood was in that room? And he said, yes, I am. If Chester Norwood is in the room with Jesse Brown in 116 when the shot occurs, he's not in the field. He's not with Gina Lee. And Gina Lee's testimony cannot be believed. And Jesse Brown said there was no doubt in his mind about that. Remember, Jesse Brown was not cross-examined by Mr. Davis. His testimony goes uncontradicted. He was not even asked one question by Mr. Davis. Jesse Brown also said something very important as well, uncontradicted. No questions asked of him. Mr. Brown, did you see Popeye or Crandall McKinnon's blue Cadillac in the parking lot that night? He says, no, I didn't. I didn't see it at any time that night. But he did see a big, old, blue car, and that was the Buick, not Crandall McKinnon's Cadillac. All right. Let's go ahead and get into our Q&A. We're going to start off with just a strict question and answer. Okay, let me give you a word list. You're going to hear excavating, trestle, inspect, structures, warning, maintained. All right, and this is going to be defense questioning. Okay. I'm going to start this at 60 and work my way to 100. Here we go. What are the duties of a pipe walker? Will you tell us that? Just inspect the lines to see if there are any leaks. Do you also inspect the structures on which the lines are maintained? Yes. Why? To see if any oil or gasoline is showing on the surface. Is it also the duty of a pipe walker to inspect the structures on which the pipelines are maintained? You mean on the trestle? Trestles or any kind of structure on which a pipeline may be maintained. Yes. You are supposed to report anything unusual. Is that right? Any kind of excavating that might be going on. Anything that may be dangerous to the trestle. Is that right? That's right. When you first inspected this trestle, was it in the location in which it was on October 10? Yes. Has it been moved since that time? No. Do you remember how many pipelines there were going over that trestle at that time? 2. It had 2. That's right. Now, was it part of your duties to inspect certain warning signs that were located under the trestle? Once each week, I reported to the office that the signs were intact. What kind of signs were they? Warning signs. Where was that warning sign located? They hung on the trestle. Okay, so I said defense was questioning and I accidentally used plaintiff, so I apologize for that. All right, let's go ahead and get into for voice. Okay, this is all, let's see, this is going to be plaintiff questioning, but defense and the court, they both jump in. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to start at 80 and work my way up to 100 with this one. Okay, here we go. Now, how long after you purchased the residence did you do that? I don't know. When you were doing that, did you ever inspect the extensions themselves? No. I just put up extra wood just between them. Yes. I know. I just made a frame. I measured it between the bricks, the opening. I made a frame of 2x4s. I put my wood on it and drilled a hole where this bolt is coming out and just drilled it up there. The bolt that's depicted here in the bottom photocopy of the photograph on Plaintiff's 3 is a bolt that you put in? No, it's not. The bolt was already there. It was already sticking out of the brick like that. I could see by looking at it that this is actually a stud and a nut on the end. So this is what enables me to put this wood up in between the openings. If we could look at this bottom photograph or laser copy of the extension in the left-hand corner above this foliage, these leaves, there's some sort of the object there. Yes, what is that object? Looks to me like a 2-liter bottle of soda or something like that. Could I look at that too? Yes, counsel. He needs to see that copy. Thank you. Continue. This area between the wall and the house, was that used for storage? I remember right by the front. Yes, it was. just right near the front. I remember I had a motorcycle and a quad on the back end right there, right next to the gate. This is not a walk-through gate. You mean it stays stationary all the time? Yes. Now, as you look at the photograph of this extension, it's a little better than this copy, counsel. Is it still your testimony that this extension was as thick as the wall itself? Do you recall it being as thick as the wall? This picture is not giving me a very good view of the thickness, but yes, it appears to be the same thickness as the wall. So if we go to the actual photograph of plaintiffs 2 from your previous deposition, the thickness of this 3-brick extension would be the same thickness as the wall, as it's depicted here in plaintiffs 2. That's correct. Do you notice the holes in the cinder blocks? Yes. Do you know if those holes were filled with concrete or cement? Yes. From the picture, it appears that they all are. Had you ever looked up there at the top of your wall? I mean, I guess I noticed it a little bit when I was in the very rear part, when I was putting the wood up. Yes. Wait, what did you notice? That there is concrete poured inside. Was it flush up to the top? Pretty near to the top. Looking at the actual photograph of the top photograph or the top photo laser photocopy to plaintiffs 3, there appears to be a wood stud. Is that affixed to your house? No, it is not. What is that affixed to? I don't even think it is affixed. I'm not sure. It just may be a board leaning on the inside. Could I look at that, please? Looks like a 2x4 by itself. It may be something leaning on the inside of the side of my house there. Do you recall having a 2x4 in the area, a long length of 2x4 at or about the time? I could have. All right, so I'm going to switch transcripts so we get plenty of variety. All right. Now, this is our medical transcript from a psychiatrist, and he's giving testimony regarding the man that went to the bar and he claims he saw a devil. So he ran home, freaked out at home, got a gun, started shooting started shooting the gun. So his wife called the police, and then when the police came, they went to the door, and then he shot and killed one of the officers. So they're trying to figure out if he was insane or not insane. So that's what they're trying to figure out. Okay, so this is going to be defense attorney. You are going to hear hallucination. So write that out a few times. Hallucination. Deviation. Conclusion. Episodically. Amnesia. Again, I know these are tough words, but it's great practice. Hallucinosis. Okay, hallucinosis state. Psychotic. Characteristic. So we have a brief for character, which is KH long ARK, and then just come back for IK. Intoxication. Okay. All right. I'm going to start at 60 because this is challenging. I'll work my way to 80. Here we go. Drawing upon your medical experience, do you have any doubts in your mind with regard to the hallucinations that Mr. Johnson told you about that evening? No, personally, I feel that he really did perceive this hallucination. During the time that Mr. Johnson would have been hallucinating this threat that he felt, he was suffering from this devil at the time that he was firing this rifle. Would it have been that he was firing at the devil? I really couldn't definitely say whether it was that organized an act or not. In a state of acute panic, feeling threatened by this thing which was following him, even about his own house, as he described it. He was firing a gun, which was his response to a dangerous situation. Whether it was a more organized act than that, I couldn't say. Now, doctor, subsequent to your examining Mr. Johnson, did you make a written report with regard to your examination? Yes. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor. Certainly. Doctor, I show you what appears to be on your letter addressed to the Honorable James K. Turner, and ask you if you recognize this. Yes, I do. Is this a copy of a letter that you submitted with regard to your examination of Mr. Johnson? Yes, that is actually the second examination. I really didn't understand why I was ordered to see him at that time. I had already seen him in January and already submitted a report. Now, in comparing your January report with your March 10 report, is there any deviation from your conclusions or your opinions with regard to Mr. Johnson's capacity to understand or know the quality of his acts or to distinguish between right and wrong? No, I believe the reports are the same. I wonder if you would look at all 3 pages or all 4 pages dated March 10, doctor, and tell me if this is a copy of the report that you sent in to the court. Yes, that's a copy of the one I have here. Thank you, doctor. Your Honor, we would move to have this introduced as Defendants J. No objection, Your Honor. It will be received in evidence as Defendants J. Doctor, I wonder if you could tell us what significance, if any, in your examination of Mr. Johnson you placed upon these statements made by Mr. Johnson, such as the ones I repeated to you. I'm sorry I shot the officers out there. I just shot. It doesn't mean anything to me anyway. This was made shortly after he was taken into custody, I assumed. I examined him about that several times, and he didn't recall making those statements, information indicating that at that time he was episodically in and out of an amnesia state where he was moved from one room to another without remembering it and not recalling part of his x-rays. And he didn't have any recall of that. Doctor, you practice over at the Orange County Medical Center. Is that right? Yes. Are you at all familiar with the emergency room procedures? To some extent, yes. Do you have any knowledge whether it's customary to leave a patient in the emergency room unattended by any medical personnel when that patient has been wounded? I don't believe it's customary. Would it be customary at the Orange County Medical Center to always have a medical person in attendance with someone suffering from shock and who has been shot. Yes, they keep them under pretty close observation, I believe. Doctor, I hate to be redundant, and I hope I'm not, but back to these alleged statements made by Mr. Johnson over at this Orange County Medical Center. Do you recall reading these reports where these statements were contained? Yes. Did you place any significance in those statements, or do you now place a significance in the statements? That was your opinion as to Mr. Johnson's state of mind, to wit, whether or not he could distinguish between right and wrong and knew the nature and quality of his acts on this night. Do these statements change your opinion in any way whatsoever? No, I don't believe so. Doctor, I wonder, did you form an opinion as to when Mr. Johnson first went into this acute alcoholic hallucinosis state and when he came out of it? No, I wasn't really able to get the time differential there. He probably went into it when he was still drinking in the bar, when he first saw this image up over the bar. And he can describe this very vividly and was still in it while he went home. That's one of the things that is different in this type of a psychotic episode than others. There is still some ability to comprehend what is happening and react. For instance, he was able to run home and find his home. In other words, they aren't completely out of contact with their surroundings. He was still responding to the hallucinations, and he probably remained in that state with possibly some variation in the degree of it. There are some brief, lucid intervals. He recalls the ride to the hospital, and he was probably more in contact then, and he probably lost contact again after being there. That's characteristic of this. Often it comes and goes until they finally sleep, and then they wake up the next day, usually fairly clear. But this type of episode is usually terminated by sleep. Okay, pretty scary stuff there. All right, so that concludes our Lower Speeds Live class. Have a wonderful evening.